Humans are a fascinating species. We went from hitting sticks with rocks to having a chosen few floating in space. We have created marvels like the Great Pyramids, the Hanging Gardens, and the Taj Mahal. Granted, our ingenuity has had an effect on the other beings on our green rock. There have been some animals that we will never see again because of our actions. But that's for a different day. Today is about the ones our technologies has helped us save and are prospering. Mostly. We're starting off with a problem that we all have heard something about. The poaching of rhino horns that has brought those majestic beasts almost to extinction. Poaching is the illegal act of killing, taking, or stealing anything from wildlife, from local to international law. It is a major problem throughout the world, but there has been a hotspot in Africa for decades. But why rhinos, you may be asking yourself? What is still seen as a myth, many medical or even magical properties have been assigned to the rhino horns. But more recently, in countries like China and Vietnam, it is used as a status symbol. A rhino horn has been known to cost anywhere from $300,000 to costing as high as $50,000 per kilogram. Local and international organizations alike have made strides on trying to put an end to rhino poaching, but it's a task easier said than done. Strides, though, have been made. In countries like Kenya and South Africa, from their tightening of travel restrictions and disrupting their supply chains, rhino poaching has fallen over 50% in the last few years. There is still a lot of work to be done, but it's finally great to see a downwards trend. Staying with big old animals, we have the ongoing recovery of the wild tiger. The big cat has had its numbers reduced to dangerously low levels from things like poaching, habitat loss, and human conflict. At one point in time, there were only 3,000 tigers left in the wild, with only about 2,500 of those tigers being breedable. Is that a word? The main problem with that is the lack of a diverse gene pool. Now, there have been a lot of effort put into preserving high-quality tiger genetics to help with tiger mating, but only so much can be done. And a lot has been done. There are 12 countries that the tiger calls home: China, India, Bhutan, etc. And those 12 countries have signed an agreement to increase their tiger population. Since then, there have been a resurgence of tigers in countries like India and Nepal. The population there has actually doubled since 2010. The Siberian tiger, another species that predominantly resides in Russia, has also seen an increase in population. At one point in time, there was an estimated 30 left in the wild. 30. That's the standard size of a class in America. But with the most recent census, there have been more than 600 Siberian tigers roaming the wildlands, with an estimated 100 of them being younglings with unlimited possibilities. There is still a lot of work to be done, but those numbers have been an extraordinary leap in the right direction. Flying majestically through the skies, symbolizing the essence of America, the bald eagles came very close to being past tense. The primary culprit was a chemical called DDT. It was originally used to protect soldiers and civilians from insect-borne illnesses like malaria and typhus. But it was not long before companies found it was a cost-effective chemical to use as a pesticide for crops. Over the decades, scientists have found that insects actually developed a sort of immunity to the chemical, as well as the long-term harm it had on the ecology. Plus, DDT can travel long distances through the atmosphere. The use of the chemicals led to the death of the bald eagle's prey, which in turn led to the destruction of their habitat. The remaining eagles were getting poisoned from their food, It was affecting their reproduction cycles. The eggs they laid were paper thin, causing them to break easily at the smallest disturbance. 1963 had the lowest recorded number of eagles, at a measly 417 nesting pairs. In the 1960s, a book called Silent Spring was released that went in depth of the effects of DDT. The book resonated with the people of America. The shocking revelation carried much needed momentum for the government to start putting regulations on DDT. It led to the ban of DDT in 1972 in the US and many other countries. The bald eagle's population had been on a steady rise since then. As of 2021, there is an estimated over 300,000 individual eagles roaming the skies of America. With the unified pressure of the American people, the American icon was saved and is now flourishing. Stepping away from the lower 48 and going to the beautiful island of Puerto Rico, we have the cute and tiny Moneto gecko. Technically, it is found on the island of Moneto, which is off the coast of Puerto Rico. The gecko found itself on the endangered list because of those pesky four-legged vermin that run the dark alleys and subways of New York. Rats. Black rats, to be more specific, that invaded the island in the 1970s. It was not too long after that the geckos had the full support of the Puerto Rican government. The Department of Natural and Environmental Resources of Puerto Rico launched an extermination order on all rats on the island. Probably should have been done during the bubonic plague too, but apparently, rats were not the cause of the Black Plague, so I'll grant him that one. Same can't be said about the war on rats on Monito, as in 1999, the department doubled their extermination order and launched Part 2. Rats, as we know, are like cockroaches. They multiply like crazy. Even on the limited island of Mojito, it took over a decade to finish the last rat. In 2014, officials finally declared the island was rat-free. Conservationists promised with the rat extinction, well, the ones on the island, that the gecko population would have a resurgence. Sure enough, in 2019, the U.S. Department of Fish and Wildlife removed the geckos from the endangered species list. The last roll call estimated there are now over 7,500 geckos on the island, roaming carefree and without a predator in sight. At the start of the 19th through 20th century, us humans were going mad with the hunting of Papa Planet's biggest mammals. Whales have been a target of human hunting probably since the moment we saw them in those great oceans. But in the 1900s, whale hunting became significantly more common for their meat, oil, blubber, and hide. During that time span, it's been estimated that over 2 million whales have been hunted and killed, almost leading to the extinction of species like the South Atlantic humpback whale. Other species of humpbacks have been reduced by as much as 95%. Their primary culprit is commercial whaling. The United States placed all species of humpback whales on the endangered species list in 1970, and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, began working with other countries and worldwide organizations to put an end to whaling in 1985. This played a major role in the resurgence of not just humpbacks, but whales in general. That order is still active today. With the progress that has been made, now there are only 4 out of the 13 humpback species that are now classified as endangered, and 1 that is seen as threatened. The recovery of whales is a continued effort, but it has been successful thus far. There is an estimated over 100,000 humpback whales roaming the ocean, a significant increase from what it was only 50 years ago. The 100,000 humpbacks, though, aren't equally divided. For example, there are over 10,000 humpback species that call the sea around Hawaii their turf, but there are only about 82 humpbacks for the whales that call the Arabian Sea their home. Even with all the protections that whales have, there is still an abundance of threats out there. Entanglement in fishing nets, ship harassment, as well as underwater noise. Again, There have been great strides in the recovery, and it seems like the humpbacks can only go up. Now listen, we humans have done some bad, but we've also done some gosh darn good work in the world. And this is just a minuscule list of the animals we've continued to support. If you've got more info, write it down in the comments below. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share. Till the next entry of Nature's Journal.